to negotiate with these people. No way to get improved compensation. But the real question is, what do you bring to the company? Do you bring the same skills and experience as every other candidate? Like nails? Like you buy in a hardware store, there's no difference? If you're literally the same as everyone else, it's going to be very difficult to get the job done, no less negotiate a salary. But the reality is most people do bring lots of great unique skills, experiences, and accomplishments to their candidacy. That's why you want to get yourself organized and identify what makes you great prior to applying to jobs. And our first exercise that's coming up soon is going to help you do just that. Differentiation is huge. I can't say it enough times. Otherwise, if you want leverage in negotiations, they need to see you as we must have this person. But even after you do everything right, all the best practice we're learning today, you're faced with the we don't negotiate statement. Then you're going to remember your alternatives, which you already identified and are comfortable with, like walking away. And then, second, decide if the offer is acceptable. If they present the we don't thing at the beginning of the interview process, you might even ask, by the way, I just wanted to let you know, if we make you an offer, it's a one and only offer. We don't negotiate, blah, blah, blah. Then you might say, well, what is the maximum offer you'll make? Because you don't want to continue to pursue this if it's out of your range, if it's not in what you're looking for. Now, the key here is to have alternatives and be ready to walk away. If they want you for the job, they won't let you walk away. If they don't care who they hire, and I don't know if anybody wants to work at a place where they don't care who they hire, what other kind of people are working there, then they may be happy to move to the next person. Either way, you're not going to let yourself be held hostage by this tactic. So how do you know the answers before they ask you the questions? Well, in a perfect world, you want to be totally prepared for any question an interviewer would ask. The world isn't perfect, but you can substantially prepare for any interview by subsequent to your research, playing out the interview in your head prior to any interview. What are you going to do? What would they ask? What would they want to know? Why would they have picked me? What are the top 3 or 4 requirements for the role, and how do I fit them? What are my accomplishments relevant to this job? Do your homework up front. Advance planning and research. Now here's the big one. Everybody wants to turn up their sound, get out their sharp pencils, because this is the number one question I get asked all the time. What do I say when they ask what my current compensation or salary is? Ding, 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 ding. This answer is so good, and it's so simple too, that you'll be really impressed, or at least surprised. So first, why do you not want to give them your current compensation? Because why do you want to limit your ability to get the maximum compensation for you in the new job? So when I'm asked what my current compensation is, I turn it around. I say, well, what is the salary budgeted for this role? And in most cases, they'll answer you with their comp range. And they may even state there's some room to go above that number for the best candidates. In the event they answer that, in the event they refuse to answer that, and they say we're very flexible based on the experience, which by the way is never true, like they have no they have no budget, which is never true. They always have a budget. Your fallback is a response to say you've been considering roles similar to this one with total compensation from $125,000 to $150,000. And you're using total compensation because that includes salary and bonus and gives yourself some room to take a higher or lower salary depending on the desirability of the job. But when you turn around and say, well, what is the salary budget? And they say 150 to 200. You can say, oh, that's the kind that fits within my range of what I'm looking for. Okay, you just solved that problem without having to give them your salary of 118, because none of their business what your salary is. and there's no reason to discuss your salary. So you flip it around to them. That's the key. And you always use total compensation because that gives you room to take more bonus, less salary, however it goes. Now we get to one of the most important parts of the job search and interview process. Okay, this is your position of strength. How to position yourself so that the employer wants to pay you the maximum salary and compensation. This is the part that puts you in a position of strength, where you establish your value to a prospective employer. What you do here will make a big difference in getting you a job offer and will also substantially support your ability to get the maximum compensation. You need to review your career and employment history and look for what you've accomplished for your current and past employers. And what does that mean? Did your project save the company money? How much? Did your software streamline the process, thereby doubling throughput? Put in some real numbers if you can, or at least a range. Did you complete a 12-month project in 6 months through effective hiring and management? What did you do? This is what differentiates you from all the other candidates. I have seen entry-level resumes where many of the jobs are part-time retail, so people put down things like handled money and answered phones. And I love that one because I don't know anyone on the planet from age 2 and up who can't cite those as, quote, accomplishments. But in addition to being too generic, they're not even accomplishments, they're just completed tasks. How about reduced incoming calls by 50% by tracking customer complaints and reducing issues by 34%? Now that's an accomplishment that a prospective employer might be interested in. Establishing your value. This is an extremely important part of the process. And that's why I've created an exercise to help everyone get a head start on identifying your accomplishments. So what I want you to do, you should have downloaded exercise 1. And the goal in this is to turn your resume tasks into resume accomplishments. And we're going to, the accomplishments example I just gave, I'll give it again. How about reduced incoming calls by 50% by tracking customer complaints and reducing issues by 34%? So things like that are accomplishments. So what you want to be doing now is working on this, exercise 1, download it, and create your accomplishments. It gives you a little bit of a framework here. But what we want to do for now is when you get your accomplishments figured out, let's put them in the chat box. So we're going to spend the next 10 minutes doing this, and then we're going to answer your question. We're going to answer some of these questions. So let's put in the chat box your accomplishments when you have them. And we'll be back in 10 minutes, which is on the hour. So utilizing new store branding, increase customer satisfaction scores as high to 90%. By new store branding and customer journeying strategies. Okay. Is adopted by the international initiative, right first time process. So you reduced errors or however you define it. And then 50% reduction in projects implementation costs. That's a big one. And 250% increase in brand design. So those are all good. People get excited. How did you do it? Accomplishment from back when I worked in corporate banking sales. Contracted the highest amount of new corporate loans in a single first quarter compared to the last 4 quarters. Bringing into the bank 5 new corporate customers. Engaging 10 dormant customers into working with the bank, which increased corporate centers revenue by 100,000 FQ, which is for quarter. I don't know. No, those are great. So, this is what people want to see. So, contacted the highest amount of new corporate loans, contracted. So that's awesome. Built a cookie cutter app that reduced initial build and deployment of a new microservice from a couple of days to minutes. That's exciting. So I don't know when you say cookie cutter app, I don't know if you're making it sound too simple, or you're trying to make it sound as a simple app that everybody can use. So I'd be careful with the word cookie cutter, because unless it really is cutting cookies, but I don't think so. So a little more specific on that, but that's pretty awesome, from a couple of days to minutes. So, a couple of days could be 48 hours. Literally, that's like a 99.9% reduction in build and deployment. It's huge. I develop a system to do unit testing. Other developers can follow easily. Example, how to test a component, mock, render, improve my productivity. Can it be considered an accomplishment? So if you built a system to do unit testing, the way you define an accomplishment many times is comparing it to what did you do before you did this. So the current system is A, and with your new system, you save time, you save money, you reduce the complexity of it, you did something that was significant and added a lot of value for people, right? So that's where that's when you're trying to compare it to something. So yes, you can use it. The question is, what would you compare it to? So that's what I would do. So a lot of these are very good, and you can see it makes you stand out from everybody else. That's what's huge about this. Before there was no testing. Okay. So what was the effect of no testing? Was there errors? Were there errors? Were there, as a result of testing, did you have, 20% of the units didn't work properly? Now with testing, you've reduced that error ratio down to 2% or whatever. What was the negative aspect of no testing? Someone wrote, took over many of the tasks that were previously landing on my manager's shoulders, giving him more time. He expanded our team. Again, you just said it right there. These are tasks. These are not accomplishments. So you want to have accomplishments there. I know there were no unit tests at all, but when there were no unit tests at all, the question is, what was the effect of having no tests? Why do any tests? There must be a reason they decided doing the testing would be valuable. So what was the advantage of doing the testing? That's what I'm trying to figure out, the value of your accomplishment. So these are great. We got a lot of good stuff here. And you can see how this is what's going to differentiate you from somebody else. This is what makes you special. This is why people say, wow, I want to work with this person. They're fantastic, right? So this is what makes you special. And that's what's important. That's why you're doing this, all right? To really stand out from the other people. So it's now 10 minutes after the hour. So why don't we what's going to pay between 120 and 150 total compensation? And you can say, okay, I'm in that range. So let's say if they say, well, we don't have a budget for this. Why don't you tell us what your current compensation is? Well, I'm looking for jobs in the range of 120 to 150 total compensation. Oh, okay. That answered their question. So your concern that you're negotiating away your opportunity is I just did a range in total compensation. And you can say when you give them the range, depending on the job and depending on the responsibility and depending on how many offers I get, it'll determine, which number I'm getting. So if you said 120 to 150 and they offer you 120, you might say, well, I don't know. I have a couple of other things in the works that I may get an offer on. So I don't want to just accept this and not be able to benefit from that other offer. So then they'll get nervous and they might come up a little bit. But the idea is you're giving them a range, worst case. And you said total comp. So that doesn't scare them off because that could include bonus as well as salary. So if they have a bonus program, they might say, oh, I could get them into that with the bonus. We could get them to 150 or whatever. So that's how you don't end up getting caught in that. When you're accepting a new role, how soon in the process should you discuss salary? Also, how much time is it appropriate to ask to respond to the offer? Well, you said when you're accepting a new role. I think what you mean is when you're interviewing for a new role, because if you're accepting it, they would have offered you a salary at that point if they offered you the job. So I'm suspecting what you mean is when you're interviewing for a new role. Now, if you're at a company and they're offering you a promotion and they say, okay, we're going to promote you from director to vice president and you start tomorrow. All right, great, goodbye. I go, excuse me, with the additional responsibility usually comes additional compensation. Yeah, you'll see it in your paycheck. That's not cool. You need to, because you don't have to take the job. I knew somebody once that wouldn't take a promotion. I knew multiple people in my life that wouldn't take promotions. So you don't have to take the promotion. You've got to find out if they're going to pay you to commensurate with your responsibility. So if that's the case, you're going to ask them then. If it's when you're interviewing for the job, you're going to want to, I guess, typically if I'm interviewing for a job, I would let it ride for a while if it hasn't been discussed already. And then if you're into a serious follow-up interview and they're coming down the home stretch, you might ask them, can you give me a sense of what the compensation is on this role? And they'll tell you. So keeping it a little generic sounding can give you a sense of where their compensation is. So that's how I would approach that. What are the best ways to differentiate yourself from other candidates? So that is the question of the day, and that comes right back to your accomplishments. That is the best way to differentiate yourself from other candidates. Being able to cite specific accomplishments that have made your company a lot of money, saved a lot of time, sped up processes, increased productivity. These are the things they want. That is the leverage of IT, and that's why you're there, is to leverage IT to get them what they want. Get them great students that, if you're in a college, get them great students. So, leveraging IT to benefit them. So, the best way to differentiate is your accomplishments. So you want to make sure that you're focusing on those. That's going to make the difference. Can they ask current compensation? I thought this was no longer a practice in the industry. In certain places, like New York City, they can't ask you what you're currently making. In certain places, they require it published in the ad. There's all kinds of laws going up around the country in the United States that's limiting what they can ask. But, there's so many ways to get around that. But you can ask the people, what kind of compensation are you looking for? So the way to get around it is to ask prospective employees, well, what compensation are you looking for? Let them tell you. So that avoids having to tell you current compensation, but it gives an indication of where you're at in the process. So that's a good thing. So let's see. So they definitely can still ask about current compensation in a lot of places. So some places now the law is they have to publish the compensation for the job. Like I think it's in Colorado or something, they have to publish it. So it just depends on, what's happening. It just depends on what they're doing. So you just have to go with it and see what goes on in your state. Let's see. Let's get the next one. It says, if you already know you're in the top scale of the salary range in your current company, what could you do more to have that leverage in yearly salary negotiations, VP level, in finding a new job? Is finding a new job the only way? All negotiations come to you. You're ready at the top of the range and current. So this is a great question. And I ran into this once at a job I had after I had made a huge accomplishment deal for them. And I'll tell you what I think it is. It's garbage. And I'll tell you what I mean. If you're doing a great job and they say, well, we can only give you 0.25% because you're right at the top of the range. And I wish sometimes I could go back with what I know now to say to these people stuff. And I wish I could have used the best practices I teach in this class, years ago when I was in this thing, feeling hostage, which always irritated me. And it was my own stupidity for falling into that. But, I would just sit down with my boss, and if they say, well, we can only give you 0.5%, whatever, I'd say, so let me ask you a question. If you're in my shoes and you've done an amazing job, you just saved the company $10 million, and they came to you and they said, we'll give you this little minuscule amount, that's how much we appreciate it, because they're claiming some technicality is limiting your ability to give me a real raise, what would you think? Because to me, there's only one answer. Well, if you think I'm at the top of the range, then maybe I should be at the top of my performance. Meaning, no more performance. We've run out. So does that mean I should look for a new job to get a raise? I mean, it's absurd. So companies can do anything they want. I always love when companies say, well, I have a hiring freeze. And yet they're hiring people left and right. Okay? It's all garbage. I don't care where you are. It's all garbage. They do what they want to do. Hiring freezes stop people from filling jobs that they don't want to help. And the people that they want to help, that need to fill the job, can fill the job. It just make it more difficult, but you can. Getting raises, good raises, because you're at the top of the salary grade is very doable. They can easily do something if they want you to stay there. I can tell you my biggest mistake in the job where this happened is feeling like a hostage. Because truthfully, it was my own mistake, okay? Because I should have just said what I wanted to say. Although I knew my boss, he didn't have a lot of authority. And, I could have said something to him and he would have said, well, Jim's not going to do anything. But I'd say, fine, then I'll have to do something. And, sometimes that's the only way to do it, is to find another job. But if they really value you, that excuse, you're at the top of the range, garbage. Garbage. If they value you, they find a way to pay you. There's no law against paying you more because on a sheet of paper it says the salary range goes to X and you're at the top.